The sky was streaked with fading hues of orange and deepening blue as the sun dipped beneath the rooftops of the quiet suburban neighborhood. The automatic doors of the CVS slid open with their familiar hiss, and Marcus stepped out into the warm evening air. He let out a soft sigh of relief, rolling his shoulders and adjusting the red CVS vest that clung to his back after a long shift. His name tag, slightly tilted, still caught the last glimmer of daylight, Marcus T., Customer Service. It had been a long day, stocking shelves, ringing up endless lines of customers, answering questions about cold medicine and sale items, but nothing out of the ordinary. He wasn't upset, just worn out. It was one of those days where you clock out not with frustration, but with the quiet satisfaction of having done your job well. The kind of day that ends with your feet aching and your mind already drifting toward the weekend. Marcus pulled out his phone, the screen lighting up his face as he navigated to the Lyft app. He tapped a few times, confirming the ride. His driver, a woman named Carla, was 7 minutes away. He found a spot on a small metal bench just a few yards from the CVS entrance, nestled under a street lamp. The bench was slightly weathered, paint chipped in a few spots, but it was enough to rest his legs. He sat down heavily, letting out another sigh, this one longer, more relaxed. The parking lot was mostly empty, save for a few late-night shoppers and a stray shopping cart that had rolled halfway toward the curb. Across the street, lights from a diner blinked lazily through their neon haze. The world was winding down. Marcus scrolled idly on his phone, checking a few texts and liking a couple of Instagram posts. He took a quick glance at his reflection in the dark screen, sweat on his brow, bags under his eyes, and that look of being somewhere between exhausted and relieved. His earbuds were tucked into his backpack, but he didn't bother putting them in. He wanted to hear the sounds of the evening, the crickets starting to chirp, the occasional hum of a passing car, the buzz of the streetlight above him. It was peaceful. He looked down the road, just to see if Carla was maybe arriving early. Not yet. So, he leaned back slightly, resting against the bench, phone still in hand. Just waiting. It was the kind of ordinary moment millions of people experience daily, a quiet intermission between work and home, between obligation and rest. Marcus had no idea that this simple, forgettable pause in his day would soon become unforgettable. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next scene in the same expanded style. 10 minutes had passed. The sky had dimmed further, stars just starting to peek through the dusky veil above. A cool breeze brushed past Marcus as he refreshed his Lyft app. Carla was now 3 minutes away. He shifted on the bench slightly, stretching his legs, still scrolling through his phone. He wasn't thinking about much, maybe. The night, once quiet and ordinary, had taken on a strange, brittle tension. Marcus sat upright on the bench, hands resting on his thighs, as he watched the taller officer return from the squad car with his ID. The officer's face was unreadable, professional, but detached, like he'd already drawn a conclusion and was simply waiting to act on it. Marcus Thomas, the officer said, reading from the license, then glancing back at Marcus. You said you work here? Yeah, Marcus replied, nodding. He reached into his pocket and produced his CVS name tag and employee ID badge, still clipped to his lanyard. I just clocked out 20 minutes ago. I've been sitting here waiting for my Lyft. The officer didn't even glance at the badge. Instead, he exchanged a look with his partner, the shorter one, who gave a subtle nod. You match the description of someone we're looking for, the taller officer said. Marcus's eyes widened, confusion flashing across his face. What? What description? A young black male, dark hoodie, loitering near businesses, the officer replied. Could be casing the place. Someone called it in. Marcus shook his head slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not wearing a hoodie. I'm in my work uniform. I work here. We still need to check it out, the officer said flatly. Stand up. Marcus hesitated. Are you serious? I haven't done anything. You can call the store manager. He knows me. My ride is almost here. Sir, stand up, the shorter officer interrupted, his hand moving toward his belt. Marcus stood, slowly, heart thudding in his chest. His hands were slightly raised, not in surrender, but in a silent plea to de-escalate. And then it happened. The taller officer reached behind Marcus, grabbing his wrists with sudden force and pulling them behind his back. Cold steel touched his skin, first one wrist, then the other, as the handcuffs clicked shut with finality. Hey! What are you doing? Marcus protested, panic edging into his voice. I haven't done anything wrong. People in the parking lot began to notice. A woman who had just exited the CVS gasped and fumbled for her phone. Another bystander across the street raised his phone and started recording. The red and blue flash from the police car's lights lit the scene with sharp bursts, adding to the surreal horror of it all. Marcus stood frozen in disbelief, his hands cuffed behind him, still wearing his CVS badge. Y'all serious right now? He said, breath shaking. I work here. I'm not a criminal. The taller officer said nothing, while the shorter one began talking into his radio, requesting backup for detainment of a suspect. From across the lot, a voice shouted, he didn't do anything. Another called out, that's messed up. But the officers didn't acknowledge them. Marcus was led toward the squad car, each step heavier than the last. He wasn't angry yet. He was stunned. Disoriented. Afraid. And somewhere in the distance, his Lyft pulled into T. The tension that had gripped the neighborhood rippled out to the very heart of the city's power centers. Inside the police department's press room, reporters crowded in, cameras flashing and microphones pointed toward the podium where the police chief was preparing to speak. Good afternoon, the chief began, his voice steady but measured. We are aware of the incident involving an individual detained outside the CVS store last night. We take these matters seriously and are conducting a full investigation. Questions from reporters fired rapidly. Were the officers' actions justified? What led to the arrest of the CVS employee, Marcus Thomas? Will the officers face disciplinary measures? The chief replied, the 2 officers involved have been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. We are committed to transparency and accountability. Outside the press room, protests continued. Activists chanted and held signs demanding justice for Marcus. The city's mayor released a statement urging calm but acknowledging the community's pain and calling for reforms in police training and oversight. Meanwhile, CVS corporate headquarters issued their own statement, expressing support for Marcus and condemning racial profiling. The message was clear, they stood behind their employee. We are committed to the safety and dignity of our associates, the statement read. We will cooperate fully with any investigations and advocate for fair treatment. The Lyft driver, Carla, was interviewed by several news outlets. She confirmed Marcus's account, saying she arrived at the designated pickup spot and found Marcus waiting calmly on the bench in his CVS uniform. He was just waiting like anyone else would, she said. There was no reason for anyone to suspect anything. Legal experts weighed in, highlighting the problematic nature of the arrest. The incident became a case study in racial bias and the dangers of stop-and-frisk type policing. Community leaders called for stronger safeguards to prevent such incidents from recurring. At City Hall, officials met behind closed doors, pressured to act quickly. New policies on racial profiling and use of force were discussed. Proposals for improved police training, community engagement programs, and enhanced accountability measures were drafted. Marcus himself remained in the spotlight. While shaken, he had found unexpected strength from the public outpouring of support. His attorney announced plans to file a formal complaint and explore civil rights litigation. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of hope and frustration. The incident had sparked a movement, pushing long overdue conversations into the open. For the city, the question was clear, could they turn this painful episode into meaningful change? As night fell again, the red and blue lights had faded from the CVS parking lot, but the spotlight on justice shone brighter than ever. Would you like me to expand on the